Question 4 in this paper asks us about equations and the roots of equations. And to start with, it says how many real roots has this equation got here? X squared plus 5 equals 4x. One thing that we need to be able to do to find the roots of equation is put the whole thing equal to 0. So I'm going to reorganize that as x squared minus 4x plus 5 equals 0. Now we have it as a quadratic equation. Now we should know that the values of the numbers in front of x and x squared are the coefficients, and the number on its own are a, b, and c. And if we look at the term b squared minus 4ac, this is our discriminant. And if we fill in these values of a, b, and c into the discriminant, we will find out how many roots we've got. So our value of b is minus 4. Be careful here. Minus 4 all squared is positive 16. Minus 4 times 1 times 5. So minus 20. And overall that equals negative 4. Now, if we get a positive answer for the discriminant, we have 2 real roots. If we get a value of 0, we have 1 set of repeated roots. But in this case, we have a negative answer. And that tells us there are no real roots for this. So in other words, for part 1 here, we have no real roots. Okay. So part 2 goes on then and says express this in the form of x minus a all squared plus b, and this is called completing the square. So if we take our equation, or our expression, sorry, x squared minus 4x plus 5, and we look at the first two terms, we've got an x squared and a 4x. What we want to do is put that into a bracket squared. And the way we do it is we have an x, and we half the coefficient of x. So half of negative 4 is negative 2. Okay. Now, if I square out x minus 2 all squared, I get x squared minus 4x plus 4. So to make this bracket the same as the first two terms, I have to subtract that extra 4. When I square this out, x plus minus 2 all squared, I get x squared minus 4x plus 4. So I take away that 4 to add it up. And then I tag on the minus 5 at the end. And so we simplify that down. X minus 2 all squared plus 1. That's it. We've expressed it in that form by completing the square. Then it says, hence round down the minimum value of that and the value of x at which it occurs. Well, if we look at this equation, this bracket is squared. So we will always, whenever we put a positive, any kind of number in here, we will always get a positive number when we square it, except when the bracket is equal to 0. So the minimum value in this case will occur when x equals 2. In other words, when the bracket is 0. And the minimum value will be when the bracket is 0. So 0 plus 1, which is 1. And finally, it says sketch the graph. Hence, sketch the graph. So we've got to put all this information on. Our minimum value is when x is 2. So we've got our x-axis here and our y-axis here. When x is 2, y is 1. So that's going to be our minimum value. And I know this is a positive quadratic. The equation of that curve is a positive quadratic. That's a happy face. It looks something like that. So I'm going to draw it in something like this. But what I do need to know is, where does that cross the axis? Well, it crosses the axis when x is 0. And when x is 0, we put that into this equation. We get 0 minus 0 plus 5. And that's 5 on the scale there. Diagram's not perfectly scaled there, not to worry too much, but we've got the major and the important points on it, and we've got the general shape of the graph.